Thank you, everyone who's joined in person this morning for this. This is the first SASA Masterclass that we were doing, and it's part of a new initiative that we have where we are trying to create a lot more interesting content and more relevant content for our members, and come up with things that are useful to anyone in the trade or anyone with ambitions to be in the trade. So we put together a really interesting program today. We've got seven speakers, I think, and the 7 speakers all representing different spheres of the industry. The focus today, or what we hope the takeaway from today is going to be, is what do you do next? If you're a person who's entered the wine industry, you want a career in the wine industry, you're not sure which course to go through, you're not sure which qualification you want to have, the idea behind this masterclass is to give you the options, and all 7 of the speakers are pretty deeply involved in the different courses that they offer, and they've all been very generous to offer their time to be here today and explain it to us. And so we've got it recorded, which is really important because we're trying to, if you're not going to be here, you can't make it in person, it shall be recorded and everyone can get the benefit of understanding it. And it is quite a landscape. I think in the last few years there's been a lot of newer developments, which is great for the industry. It's going to show how much development we've been able to create. We have the Sommeliers Academy, the only one in Africa, if I am not mistaken, and one of the few in the world, which is a school dedicated to sommelier. That's pretty incredible. We have WSET, which is the global leader in wine education, and we've got one of the most respected wine educators here, Kathy Marston, speaking on behalf of WSET. Obviously, we've got SASA and Sommelier, which I will touch on, and the ASI, which JV and myself will speak on. And then we'll do a little bit with Erica Taylor, who will touch on a very interesting thing, which is something that's come up quite often. Well, come up a lot more quite recently since COVID, which is the self-study option, which a lot of people will pursue on their own, not maybe going through the formal education or formal classes, but picking up the stuff that you can pick up online, and where does that eventually lead you? And ultimately, at the end of the session, we're going to hope that it'll give you a good impression if you are someone looking to get into the industry, if you're someone looking to make a change in the industry, which courses, which qualifications will make the most sense for you, and so on. And I'm going to start with our first speaker today, which is, well, you're all going to have to bear with me because he's not here. He's in the UK. But very privileged to have the time of Gareth Ferreira, MS, the first ever South African Master Sommelier. We're all very proud of him. Great achievement. And probably in the same note, I will take a quick little segue and also congratulate Joe Wessels, who is also South African and 7th best sommelier in the world. Happened only 2 weeks ago. So, it's amazing. The trade of sommelier, what we're doing in this country is phenomenal. And it's great to be seeing the rewards for it. So Gareth is an educator with the Court of Master Sommeliers. That is something that is... that is something that is now available in South Africa through Chenin Noir. Unfortunately, we don't have any representatives from Chenin Noir today, but we'll put a little pack together at the end, and we'll have all the information of all the different organizations for anyone who wants to communicate directly with them. So Chenin Noir has been bringing the Court of Masters to South Africa for a few years now, and that gives another option if anyone who's looking for a different spin on that. So Gareth is going to talk you through what the Court of Masters is, what they do, and all of that. And then just finally, you'll all see this glass of wine before you. It's a Pinot Noir. It's the house Pinot Noir for culture. And a very important thing with all the different courses that we do or that are available, they all assess wine in a different way, with different ambitions, different goals, with the different outcomes intended. And so we thought it would be a very useful thing to do, to go through the same wine, but with each format. So you will understand how to evaluate wine from a WSET perspective, from an ASI sommelier perspective, and from a Court of Master Sommeliers perspective. Cool. All right, so I'm just going to hand over to Gareth. Like I said, please bear with me, or bear with us. We're going to do our best to amplify and go from there. So over to you, Gareth.
Yeah, I think, all these different organizations, all these different ways to gain qualifications and wine educations, that really they the goal is all to achieve the same thing, and that's for us better understanding of wine, better service in restaurants. I think we all work together in different ways. It's just, as you say, there are many different ways that you can choose to gain your qualifications or knowledge or experience. So the Court of Master Sommeliers, for me at the time in my career, just made sense. You know, in South Africa, WSET was available. I know Kathy was already doing that, and obviously a great job of it. But what the Court of Master Sommeliers does is really focus on the service side of the industry, which at the time I was working in restaurants, so it was something that made sense to me to follow. Unfortunately, it wasn't available in South Africa at that stage, so I was very fortunate to have employees and employers that helped me travel to do these courses, and then kind of snowballed from there. But just a little brief overview about the Court of Master Sommeliers and how it was established. I mean, originally the first exam was actually done through the Institute of Masters of Wine, and that was because the Institute of Masters of Wine consisted of journalists and shippers and business owners and consultants and educators, but there weren't any service industry involved in that. So the first exam was done at Vintners Hall in London in 1969, and 3 people passed the exam. And this was, as I say, to improve service in restaurants. You know, the Institute of Masters of Wine and their members needed people in restaurants to sell their products, and that's where highly educated sommeliers came into play. So that was the idea. From there, by sort of 1977, the Court of Master Sommeliers was established, and in the 80s it became internationally recognized by going to America as well. You know, currently there's 271 members, which as we go through the courses, I'll explain briefly how each level goes up. But once you actually pass your Master Sommelier exam, you're invited to become a member of the Court of Master Sommeliers. So it currently stands since 1969 at 271 members, and that's globally. The way the exam is structured, initially those first exams would just take in the Master Sommelier exam, and in those initial years, people quickly realized that the exam was at a very high level and that not many people were passing. So they decided to introduce various levels, so that as you go through the levels, by the time you were taking the Master Sommelier exam, that you were fairly ready, educated, and knew what the exam was about. And that's when the introductory and certified exam was introduced, which are the 2 exams available now in South Africa for the last few years. So just to touch on that, last year, September, we did an introductory and certified course in South Africa. And this year we'll be doing another one from the 10th to the 12th of September, as Spencer said, through Chenin Noir, Stellenbosch. So introductory certified, these 2 courses get held over 3 days, and you can do your introductory and certified at the same time, depending on your results. It's a 3-day course where lectures are held. We go through how to taste wine the Court of Master Sommelier way, which I think Erica mentioned that you have a Court of Master Sommelier tasting grid, which is beside you. This is kind of like for anyone taking Court of Master Sommelier exams, it's that lives with you. You become attached to that tasting grid. And I think, you know, if you go through WSET or any other qualifications, I think it's generally all the same in terms of what you're trying to do with the wine, or how you're trying to figure out where or what the wine is. But it's very, very important. We use that religiously to do blind tasting. But that gets taught in those courses. We teach people how to use that as a tool to do blind tasting. Ultimately, the introductory exam is a written exam, which you do not take any blind tasting. You take a written exam with a service element, right? For introductory and certified, a 60% pass mark is needed. So once you pass or take the introductory exam and you have a score of more than 70%, you are asked if you want to take the certified exam straight away. So you are able to cover those two courses in one exam. For the certified exam, you do a tasting, theory, and practical service part. It's important to know that each of these exams obviously get harder and harder as you go through. And the courses that we actually teach at the exam is an overview of what the world of wine is about. I think what really needs to be understood about Court of Master Sommeliers exams is that candidates that show up to take the exam are already expected to have put a lot of work into studying. The introductory certified exam is not an examination where you come for 3 days, you sit through a course, you take an exam and you get a certificate. It's really, a lot of the prep has to be done before the time. And that's often years of preparation. It cannot just be done in 3 days. It's impossible to be able to pass these qualifications with just a 3-day course. So introductory certified, moving on to the advanced exam. And the advanced exam was really created to bridge the gap between certified and master sommelier. Again, it was sort of noted that people that were doing intro certified and going straight to master sommelier exam were just not at a level to be able to take the master sommelier exam. So the advanced exam was created almost like a mini master exam, and it's structured in the exact same way as the master sommelier exam. The only difference is that you need a 60% aggregate to pass, where the master sommelier exam you need 75%. And obviously the level is slightly lower. In the advanced exam, you still take a written theory paper. You do a blind tasting of 6 wines, which you use the grid that you have in front of you, and you do quite a detailed practical service exam. So you probably, your practical service is set up as a restaurant scenario. You'll enter a room, you'll have several different tasks to complete, and you'll probably be doing a practical examination for anywhere up to 45 minutes to an hour. And it's really quite an in-depth exam, and really what that advanced exam was created for was to prepare people for the master sommelier exam. In terms of the master sommelier exam, it is an exam which is by invitation only. So once you've done your introductory, certified, and advanced exam, there's usually up to sort of 2 or 3 year waiting list for the master sommelier exam, and there's various reasons for that. First of all, it's the time that is needed to prepare for the exam in terms of theoretical knowledge, tasting, practical service. And usually by the time people are taking the master sommelier exam, they're fairly experienced in the industry. They're probably at a level where they're running a wine program, they're looking after staff, they're buying wine, they're working at a high level in a top quality restaurant, and they've been doing that for some time. I think it's a very difficult exam to pass if you haven't had a lot of experience in the industry, because a lot of the exam is tailored around what you will do in day-to-day life as a head sommelier, wine director in a high-quality restaurant. The master sommelier exam differs slightly in that there is no courses involved in the master sommelier exam. This is an exam that you are expected to be ready when you show up for the exam. It's 3 parts to the exam: tasting portion, theory portion, as well as a practical service. For the master sommelier exam, the difference with the theory is it's done orally. So it's not a written exam, which makes it different to prepare for. I think preparing for an oral theory exam is a lot harder than preparing for a written exam. It's a little more nerve-wracking. You have three people sitting across the table firing questions at you, and you have to answer them. You have no time really to sit and think and write things down. So preparation is quite key. I went for years and years and years through the MS exam, where I thought just me studying in my normal way, writing notes down would be enough, but it really isn't, because you start to learn things the way that you write them down instead of the way that other people might ask them to you. The reason why it's done orally is exactly in a restaurant scenario. If people had to ask you something about a law, a grape variety, a region, a climate, a soil, a country, you don't have time to think about it and write it down. You have to respond orally. So that was really the idea behind doing an MS exam orally. The other thing I mentioned, all the three exams, the intro, certified, and advanced exam, the required pass mark for each section is 60%. For the MS exam, it moves up to 75%. So it's quite a step up. The difference with the MS exam, you can carry parts for 3 years. So if you pass your blind tasting, practical, or theory, you can keep those sections for up to 3 years. And if you haven't passed all three sections in 3 years, then you reset the exam. So there is a different element to that than say the advanced exam, intro and certified, where you need to pass all three sections at the same time. So that's sort of a little overview. I was wondering maybe if people had some questions, it might be a little easier to elaborate on some things if there were questions about the Court of Master Sommeliers and how exams are run.
Oh, yeah. Is it on? Does anybody have any questions? Nope, no questions.
They're a little scared.
Everyone said they're scared.
But, the one thing I can say, and I think it's with all associations doing wine education, that there's definitely nothing to be scared of. Everyone that is teaching, was teaching, and will teach, they all go through the same things. And you start by being terrified, and then I guess when you get on the other side, you're still terrified, because you really want people to pass, and that's the aim of this association, is really just to improve wine knowledge and service across the board. Strong's. And everyone always said to me when I was taking the exam, we sit across the table and we really want people to pass. And as a candidate taking the exam, you feel like the examiners are against you, but it's completely the opposite way. I'm sure the other educators in the room will feel exactly the same. Since I've done education, I'm almost more nervous than I was when I was taking the exams, to be fair.
All right, awesome. Is there anything else that you have for us?
No, if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to ask. But sorry, I had to be quite brief because I got to run off to work now. It's 2 hours earlier in the UK. It's Friday lunch service, so we're going to be absolutely rammed. To be fair.
All right, awesome, Gareth. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. So that was Gareth, that was CMS, and I think more an extension to the people who watch this on video. If you have any questions, you can email us directly, info@sommeliers.org.za, and we'll be sure to pass the questions on to him or answer them as best we can. And if you are around the table and feeling a bit shy, you can speak to me privately, and I will extend your questions as well. All right, cool. So we didn't quite touch on the actual tasting part of it, but I think in the interest of time, we'll try and combine the two together. So the next part of the program will be me talking about SASA and the ASI and what we offer as the Sommeliers Association in South Africa. And I want to do that in tandem with JV, with the Sommeliers Academy. And I think it will be actually more interesting because JV is the only person, I believe, in South Africa anyway, who's got CMS qualification and ASI qualification. So I think it would be great if he could talk through, and a SASA qualification, of course. So it'd be great if he can go through a tasting analysis with all of us, with the wines in our glasses, and maybe just highlighting the little differences between the two, but really also highlighting the difference when evaluating wine as a sommelier versus just as a from a wine information knowledge, which Kathy will touch on in the next session. Okay, cool. So very quickly, so SASA is the umbrella organization that looks after sommelier in South Africa. We've been around now, we're close to our 10th anniversary. Close to. 10th, 12th. But the actual start date is a bit vague. But SASA's mandate is certification. We are the only organization on the continent that has the mandate to certify at sommelier level. And that's an important thing, and it's a thing that we will emphasize a lot more in the next year, because I think there are a lot of people who title themselves sommeliers. There are a lot of people who work in the industry and are titled as sommeliers. And it's a little bit of a gray area because there's a lot of self-study involved, and there's it's a lot of experience-based things. I'm actually not wearing my pin today, but I'll use JV as an example. And the pin that he's proudly wearing, the little gold pin on his shoulder, on his lapel, is the mark. It's the actual mark that you do get when you qualify as a certified sommelier. And in other markets, in other places, when you're not working in South Africa, people look at that and recognize that, and it's a mark of recognition. People understand that you have taken the time, done the exams, worked through the process to become an actual certified somm. And that's important because I think it's there's always. It's good to have something to be measured against, and it's always good to have a protocol, so to speak, to follow. You can't wake up and decide that you're a qualified lorry driver because you drive a bakkie. It doesn't work that way, and it's not the correct way to do it. And yeah, sure, you could probably move a lorry from one point to the other, but that doesn't give you the license and ability and all of that to do that. And so. Certifications are a really important part of what anyone should do. And we're very pleased to have certified as SASA over 100 different people at different levels, which is really incredible. And there's been a lot of hard work by a lot of people to get to that point. As far as certifications go, it works very similar to the Court of Masters in that we have different levels. And in exactly the same thing Gareth said, you can't automatically walk in and do the highest level exam and expect to pass. There's a lot of difficulties, a lot of nuance and things and details that you need to know. So we started right at the beginning. We introduced last year the introductory sommelier course, which is not an actual sommelier qualification, but more an introduction to what it takes to become a sommelier. And within that, it's a two-part exam that is oral and theory. There is a course, in fact, we have Roxanne Waldeck here and JV who both offer that as educators. And the idea for that is to get anyone just literally right off the street, an enthusiast, someone who's finished school or is looking at shift in career and wants to get into the wine industry. The idea behind introductory is that the theory part is fairly simple. It's a fairly simple level, but will require you to have a basic wine knowledge. So we would say if you've got a WSET level 2 or Cape Wine Academy introductory, the first level, that's probably sufficient because you'll understand your basics. And then there'll be an oral service situation, which is really just to test your aptitude in a work environment, which is how do you present yourself, how confidently answer the questions, and if you obviously know the answers. Then we go to our junior sommelier certification, which is an actual sommelier certification, and you get a pin for that. That's very South African focused. It's the emphasis of what we do here. It's the most certifications that we've ever done. And JV will talk a little bit more about that because he is currently the only educator who's licensed to educate at that level. And with that, the emphasis is very much for the South African market because obviously that's where we operate. So a lot of South African wine knowledge is required. And then a fairly advanced level of service, the sort of a level of service that you would expect to have in your average good to very good restaurant in South Africa. So your ability to decant, your ability to do champagne service, the ability to prepare your mise en place and do your service adequately. And yeah, that's junior. Then we have the SASA qualification, or your SASA sommelier, of which we have about 25 people that have passed. And that's a much more advanced level. That should be able, if you pass on that level, you should be able to work in a fine dining environment anywhere in the world. The standard is set pretty high, and your knowledge base is supposed to be quite broad. So you need to understand wines, spirits, coffees, cigars, water from all over the world, and your service level needs to be quite advanced. So it's not just a question of how do you decant; it's a question of how do you decant a tricky bottle of wine. How do you react in a rather a not very average situation that you'd come with. So it requires you to be at a different level of sommelier. You'd be the sort of person who'd be running a beverage program or that kind of thing. And then at the pinnacle of it all, you have the ASI diploma, which we offer through SASA, but that is completely administered by the ASI. And that takes place one day a year for the whole world. So all 68 countries on the same day do the exam. And that's a very, very advanced exam. There are 6 different parts to it, if I remember correctly. And it's incredibly intense. And that's pretty much a passport to work anywhere to work anywhere in the world, to work in many different industries, because in order to achieve that, you have displayed a really great knowledge, not just of wine, but of service and general organization and that sort of thing. So that's what we offer. Operating in the South African landscape, we try and keep our pricing as easy as possible. Not that it's cheap, but we try and keep it as accessible to as many people as possible. And in the last few years, we've been able to get some money together and get some bursaries together. So, we don't want anyone who has the ability to pass an exam not to sit the exam because of the financial constraints. So it's something we're working on very actively, and we're trying to get more and more people involved. So, it's a benefit to everyone if more and more people can get certified and can pass. So, yeah, that is pretty much the landscape. I'm now going to hand over to JV. He's going to talk about the ASI in a bit more detail, and he's going to talk about the Sommeliers Academy and what you do. And I think just before I do, just a very important differentiation to make. I think the best example, the way of putting it, is what SASA does as the Sommeliers organization is we do the exams. So we are like the licensing board. This is the school. This is where if you want to learn about it, if you want to understand how to do it, you got to go to the training of it, you go to the driving school. So if you want to learn how to drive, you go to driving school. You've learned how to drive, you want to get your certificate, you want to get your driving license, you go to SASA and you get your pass at the exam level. Okay, so yeah, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Spencer. Hello, everyone. And I think it's very important what Spencer just said, because you don't need to go to my school, Sommelier Academy, to become a sommelier. The good point of SASA, you actually assess the competencies of the candidate. So if you have prior learning, you don't have to go through everything. You can go to SASA. We are just trying to prepare the candidate the best way, the same way Roxanne is doing as well for some candidate with a school, to make sure you are ready to the format and to the competencies expected from you, that you have not developed sometimes bad habits being on the floor on your own without supervision, or that the way you assess the wine is not the way it's the format that's expected from you. Remember, we are all part of the same family, whether you go for Court of Master Sommelier, whether you go for ASI certification, for SASA certification, you will anyway need a good wine knowledge, either through the Cape Wine Academy or WSET, that will teach you the methodology to talk about wine, to understand wine, because as a sommelier, you need to have this knowledge to transfer it to your client. You're not a wine merchant, you are not a wine specialist, you are an interacting person, and that's what Gareth said. At the Master Sommelier exam or at the ASI diploma, you face to face with the jury, except the ASI, you're actually facing a jury and a camera because you recorded, it's marked in another country. So SASA is member of the ASI since 2015, and therefore is entitled to present ASI certification, which until recently was only the diploma. That comes in 3 colors, bronze, silver, and gold. It's kind of relevant. You are an ASI diploma at that level. The bronze level is only when you take the exam in your mother tongue, in your own language. They expect sommeliers of a higher level to be able to interact in a foreign language. The same it is for competition at the ASI. If you want to represent South Africa and you learned English as your mother tongue, you have to do it either in French or Spanish. That's the rule. Beside that, the ASI, I'm proud enough to be part of the board of examination of the ASI. We've designed 2 new certifications. In the same, ASI was founded in 1969, at the same time of the Institute of Master of Wine. I think the world of wine woke up at that time. And we had only the diploma, and we realized that the level was so high that there was too many gaps between. And many associations around the world didn't have a local SATA that organized local exam and certification. Therefore, we offered 2 entry-level ASI Certification 1 and ASI Certification 2. ASI Certification 1, a few of you have been sitting it today for the first time. It's a theory exam. That's not only a wine exam, it covers practicals, it covers interaction with the client, it covers everything from calculating your own tip quickly, you know, because you have to calculate everything when you are on the floor. This gives you a certification that goes through SASA. SASA is the only one allowed to offer this qualification in South Africa. Then certification 2 is a more complex task, which includes wine tasting and description, practical complex task including food pairing and service, and a theory paper that's fairly thick. And the diploma, we have different tasks that including a selling task, including identification, including a food pairing task, a decanting of a wine during service, and a theory paper and an essay, because we believe sommelier can think for themselves and not just repeat what they've been learning. Whatever, you know, Sommelier Academy is not really offering SASA courses, ASI courses, but we can prepare you to the outcome expected for the ASI certification and for the SASA certification. For SASA certification, we're lucky enough, and please forgive me, it's the old logo of SASA, the new print batch. It's been designed by SASA, and I'm licensed as Sommelier Academy to teach this course. You need to be SASA level 2 to teach that course, and we are preparing a few sommeliers every year. This course is very well done, was done by another great sommelier which left our country, Kimi, with as well an ASI diploma. And it's actually cover all the practical side, not only for junior sommelier, but for sommelier, even certified sommelier, SASA. It goes much in depth. It was supposed to be a 2 days course. I'm teaching it over 3 days, and sometimes I'm really short over 3 days, even with a limited amount. So expect to be intense. And the same, if you go to Quarter Master Sommelier, it's 8 to 6, and you got half an hour for lunch. So it's going to be bloody intense to pack that and come ready. If you arrive here and you come to the junior sommelier and you expect to be certified sommelier after 3 days of courses, forget it. If you don't have a good level of Cape Wine Academy or WSET in your wine appreciation and the way you understand wine, that will not work. To come back to the methodology of tasting, I'm glad that we both have the Court of Master Sommelier testing grid. Do we have the WSET as well on it? So that's a very important element. The ASI, we all follow the same principle. The point is not really to identify the wine, but to be able to understand the wine and transfer this information to someone else. Whether you're a wine merchant or you're sommelier, you need to condense, synthesize information to transmit it to someone in a tasting note or in a short speech or in whatever format. Very often it's verbal, so you have to be concise and short and focusing to the point. I don't know if at MW you don't have any oral, it's just written. Good, then when you got your voice broken, you can still pass it. For the ASI guideline, you can find them online on the ASI website. It's asi.info. And you can get access to not the marking grid, but what is expected in a format very similar to the Court of Master Sommelier or WSET. We just try with the ASI to get a format of language that we're not talking to professional. So you don't expect your client on the floor to know what minus plus acidity is, or you need to find words which are relating more to client with no education, because your point is to adapt to your client education. So for the ASI, the entry point is SASA. You can get many info on the ASI website, but you have to be SASA member to sit any of the exam of the ASI from certification 1, certification 2, and diploma. I've heard that it was one of the projects of SASA to combine the SASA certified exam with the ASI certification 2. I'm sure they'll keep you informed when it's available or not, to see if it's compatible or not. What else they wanted me to talk about? About Sommelier Academy, what we offer. So we offer education in either package or in modules. In package, we develop programs for the government, like even introductory sommelier. That sounds like a entry level, and I think Spencer have been kind of underplaying it, but this is the manual I use for introductory sommelier. So it is 240 pages, double-sided. It's for people who have never been into wine. More than likely, the candidate that will approach SASA or Roxanne or us to enter the profession of sommelier and go through the introductory sommelier level will have some wine knowledge, either through Cape Wine Academy or WSET, and we can offer them courses over 2 or 3 days to make them ready for what expected for this introductory sommelier exam. Beside that, as I showed, we got the junior sommelier program that has been designed by SASA, and we stick to it. We add some role play. It's a lot of practicals, because being a sommelier is not about the theory, it's about delivering service to a client. You know, if you want to choose a job of profession, the job of being a sommelier to be in the wine trade, that will be helpful, but it's not the direct path. And for that, yes, WSET is much more adapted, or Cape Wine Academy is probably much more adapted to that. However, we can see that many sommeliers which have been successful are not on the floor anymore. Spencer is one of the best examples, but some of them, like Gareth, have the chance to work in a 3-star restaurant and be a MS, but still now delivers education through the Court of Master Sommelier. So being a sommelier opens you doors, and that's an education that probably will give you the ability to interact with others. And like Spencer said, in the highest level of exam, you will be facing not just your competencies check, but they will come with problems, with bad pairings, with problems during service, and they expect you to solve that problem the same way you would do in a restaurant. You cannot tell your clients that, I'm sorry, I'm going to tell my supervisor or my floor manager. You have to sort out problems. And as a problem solver, it will open many doors in many other fields of employment than just being on the floor. Anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, that was...
Okay.
Did you want to go to the tasting?
The testing grid?
Yeah.
The testing grid, okay. I did last year the Court of Master Sommelier deductive format. Unfortunately, never been through the WSET, but I know there's a lot of similarities in the way it's approaching. when you will sit the exam of the Court of Master Sommelier, both the introductory or the certified, you will have a pre-filled format answer sheet on which you will have to cycle or mark the descriptors, the level of acidity, the level of alcohol, the turbidity of the wine, and you will be given choices in the identification of the wine. They will, it sounds like, oh, they make it simple. Trust me, it's not that simple. That's for the certified wine. On the introductory, you don't have any, you learn how to taste, because for the 2 days, we taste probably like 15 wines from around the world, all the basics from Riesling from Germany, Gruner Veltliner from Austria, classic Cabernet from Bordeaux or from California. So you are really exposed to great quality wine that very often you don't find easily around. The same way when you reach WSET 3 or the diploma, you're exposed to level of wines that is expected from you in the world, which means you got one of these certification, you can say, oh, tomorrow I'm going to go live and work in London, like Gareth. That's a real possibility. But for that, you need this certification, not just your nice smile and calling yourself sommelier or wine specialist. Or even people calling themselves fake MS and MW, like we had an example 2 years ago. That was funny. Like we didn't pick it up. So I'm not going to have to take my glasses for that, because sommeliers on the floor get old too. On the ASI, you will have a very similar description. First, you have the site of the wine, on which you need to see if it's clear or not, how translucent it is, how dense is the color. And it's very often by the trick of putting your fingers behind the glass, by looking as well the legs, the viscosity, all the appearance of the wine. If there's a rim, how silver is the rim on a white wine, how brownish bricky is the rim on your red wine. It's just having the descriptors in the right order, the same way you go through the wine. And then on the ASI, you start now having shorter description of wine, and we have to do description of a wine in 1 minute. So you don't really have time to think. You need to be like a machine and focus on what's important. Knowing the level of malolactic fermentation in the wine, or that the oak used is more Trancé than Vosges, is not really important for your client. Nor is the name of the dog of the winemaker, as much as it creates nice stories if your client wants to talk about it. In the same sense, the nose must come first, and you will need to first assess if it's clean, and then develop in your first nose, your second nose, by group, in the same sense at the Court of Master Sommelier at WCT. You got red fruits, and then you describe, from the red fruits, I got this cranberry, red berries, strawberry, or whatever is red. Probably will put, I always struggle with the cherries. If I put that on a kernel fruit, on the red fruit, depending on the cherry, you have some rules you can play around, as long as you keep it entertaining and descriptive for your client on the ESI side. The same on the palate. Never forget, it's not a question of, that's a good wine. It's irrelevant. The level of quality, you have to detach yourself. And that's good, because very often you do that on a blind tasting. You don't know what you have. And even if you know what you have, it might be a trick. I had sommelier exam where they give you a glass of wine and you see a bottle. That's not the right. So you try, your mind think about the wine, but it's not what you got in the glass. And that's where they trick you. On the palate, yes, the same. Always think the main groups of fruit: yellow fruit, stone fruits, citrus, and then from citrus you can develop into pomelo, grapefruit, yuzu, lime. You need your descriptors in that order. And I know it's very important in the SASA methodology. They expect you, if you go straight, oh, that smells like lime, and you didn't say it's a citrus family and you got lime, you lose points, even if you got the right answer. Eventually, they want you to arrive at the end, the final conclusion, which is identifying the wine. But if you just say, that's the wine, like if you do a South African wine tasting championship, that's going to give you 5 points out of 30. That's all. So you're going to lose it, even if you pinpoint the wine, but you're unable to describe it. The major difference between the format of WSET or Code of Master Sommelier is they need you to assess the wine more than that as a sommelier, therefore suggesting temperature of service, glassware, food pairing, and is it more something you need to serve now, you need to aerate, you would remove it from your wine list because you think it's not ready yet, you would suggest to keep it 5 years in your cellar, or therefore organize a 2-hour decanting or aeration prior to the service, then it can be only served. You have to put that in a scenario that relates to your job on the floor. It's not just a wine appreciation. And I think that's a big difference between the ASI and the pure wine assessment methodology that Cape Wine Academy or WSET are providing, because it's not for the same purpose. However, if you're a good student at WSET or Cape Wine Academy, making this last part is going to be easy for you. So don't come to us with no wine knowledge at Sommelier Academy. I won't be able to teach you in 3 days a full wine methodology. And like Gareth said, it has to become automatic. If it's not, you don't have time. Everything is timed for the simple reason that as a sommelier, when you're on the floor, you cannot make your client wait. Your client experience is what justifies your salary. That's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, JV. Do you have any questions? Same protocol for questions. Cool. All right. Awesome. So yes, I think, and this is a very nice segue because before introducing our next speaker, because I think JV makes the point, and it's very important, that it all kind of comes together. As much as we encourage anyone to come and sit an exam, you need to have the foundational knowledge. And our next two speakers are the people, the power really behind the institutional knowledge you need to have. That's WST and the Cape Wine Academy. And the Sommeliers Academy is not going to teach you, as he said, in 3 days, all you need to know about wine. You need to have done that work on your own. And this is almost a highlight or a master's or something else on top of the foundational knowledge that you have. If you decide that you want to pursue sommelier, then you take that foundational knowledge and you take it to another level where now you start talking about food service and temperatures and understanding a wine list and that sort of thing. And the greater detail comes into play in that respect, and that's what will be honed at the Sommeliers Academy, at the American Youth Development Academy, or what we would examine you for at SASA, and it goes there. Just a very quick thing to touch on. Might have been a little bit confusing, but it's really important, the differentiation, and I think Kathy will speak about it a little bit more when she talks about the WSET methodology of tasting. A lot of it is about how do you get to your conclusion. It's not a question of guessing and saying, oh, this is a red wine, it has oak on it, it must be Cabernet. And you write it down, you get the points, and it's a lucky guess. That's not it. What's been assessed is how you're thinking. How did you deduce that it's a Cabernet Sauvignon? What methodology, what clues did you get from the glass? What clues did you get from the nose, from the palate that put you in the direction to think that it is? And interestingly, you can get the wine completely wrong, but do very well still in the exam because your thinking is completely accurate. And it turns out your Cabernet was a Pinotage, but it's from the exact same region, it's the exact same vintage and all of those things. And that's what's really, really important. And then you go a little bit of a step further with sommelier, then you start to think a bit from a food perspective. How do you work with this with food? What would be the most ideal temperature to go with? But without hogging the mic anymore, pleasure to introduce Kathy Marston from WSET, and she'll tell you all about that foundational knowledge.
Do I have to use the mic?
Unfortunately for the recording,
I do
I'm
have to use
sorry.
the mic,
Yes,
okay.
I'm so sorry.
I never normally use mics. I don't quite know what to do with this thing, actually. This is like, I'm normally waving my hands around all the time, so this is really inhibiting for me to have a mic. Okay, hi, thanks very much for having me here. I'm very pleased to come and see past students and hopefully some new students coming up as well. And to everyone watching this, afterwards as well. That would be great to meet you all too. So WSET is the Wine and Spirit Education Trust. And this was founded in London in 1969 as well. Clearly 1969 was a busy year in London. So this was founded in 1969. And the idea was that it was originally only going to teach people within the wine trade. And then after a bit they started expanding and they started teaching people in hospitality, and now they teach absolutely everybody. These are the industry standard courses in 75 countries around the world. The courses are available in 15 different languages. There are more than 460 course providers worldwide, and nearly 120,000 people sat one of these exams in the last 12 months. So this is really very big, and it's something that has a lot of currency outside South Africa, throughout the rest of the world, basically. I have students who have used their qualifications to go and work on cruise ships, on yachts, international restaurants, international hotel groups around the world. It's really opened a lot of doors for a lot of people. And from that point of view, it's a good qualification, I think. What we do is we offer 4 different levels. We're the only course provider for the level 4 in Africa and the Middle East. But it starts at very, very basic. So we have our one-day course, which is literally an introduction to wine. You'll see as we look at the books, actually, they get fatter as you go up the courses. So that's level 1, that's that thick. That's level 2, that's that thick. And then moving on to level 3 is that thick. So we're getting fatter all the time as we go up through the courses and through the ranks. Everything has got an international wine element, which is one of the biggest differentiators between us and the Cape Wine Academy, because everything we do is based internationally. These are courses, the exams are set in the UK, they are marked in the UK, so your result is as valid as absolutely anybody else's anywhere in the world. And so because of that, although when we teach them, we do bring in and relate things to South Africa, obviously, we are very much focused on preparing you to have an international qualification. So even right in our level 1 course, we're talking about Chablis, we're talking about Rioja, we're talking about Chianti, and explaining how you're going to understand those wines from a South African perspective. So whether you're working overseas or you're dealing with overseas visitors, and obviously we have a lot of those here in South Africa, you've got the tools that you need to be able to sell wine successfully. When you move on to level 2, the focus is firmly on international wines. We do very, very little South African wines at level 2. And when we move on to level 3, hardly any South African wines. It's virtually all international. Level 4, I haven't got any materials for you because all the materials for level 4 are online. They're updated regularly. Everything from WSET is updated on a 3-year rolling cycle. They're updated by more than 70 in-industry experts from around the world. So they call on MWs, MSs, winemakers, anywhere that you know, people who are literally in situ, who know what they're talking about. They're the ones who they use to then update the material. So in South Africa, they use people like Kathy Van Zale, who's an MW. They use Richard Kershaw. They use people who are right here to be able to give up-to-date information that's going to be relevant for you. So the diploma we do online, we keep it online because at that level you really need to have very detailed and up-to-date information. So rather than printing out all the 6 huge books that you would need, it's all done online for you. Okay, what else can I tell you? You don't need to do all the levels if you have prior learning, if you've done Cape Wine Academy, or you've just been on the floor for a long time and you actually are well aware that Cabernet Sauvignon is a black grape. That's fine. You don't need to actually do all the levels all the way through. So we have a lot of people who start on level 2. We have a lot of people who can come in and start on level 3 as well, although we will maybe just ask you a few questions and just check your learning to make sure that you're not getting ahead of yourself. We do have quizzes on our website that you can do as well. So if you're not actually sure which level you ought to be starting on, you can do the quiz on the website and it will tell you where you should actually look to start. The only exception is level 4. You cannot do level 4 unless you've done level 3, so a diploma, simply because by the time you get there, you really need to be in the zone of WSET. And what I mean by saying the zone of WSET is that everything is written very much, as you were saying, with sort of with SASA and ASI and CMS, everything is written with the consumer in mind. It's a very consumer-focused organisation, WSET. It is made to be able to help you sell wine. And so the way that they sort of structure everything is always focused on, do you understand what goes on in the vineyard and what goes on in the cellar? Do you understand how that is going to impact the style of the wine that's made, the quality of the wine that's made, and the price of the wine that's made? And then can you convey that to people so that they understand it as well? All right. So we're not an organisation that teaches you huge amounts of numbers and facts and figures. You obviously need to know numbers and facts and figures and things like that. And the further down the line you get, the more numbers you need to know. But it's, do you understand, and can you actually explain that to other people so that they can understand as well? Our first 2 levels are are much simpler, but by the time you get to level 3, you need to be able to demonstrate some critical thinking and some critical analysis. And you need to be able to demonstrate that you can actually bring that analysis to bear and explain things to people properly. So from that point of view, you cannot do 4 unless you've done 3, that you already have those skills. Okay? Terms of time that it takes to do them, anything from 1 day for level 1 up to about 2 years to do our level 4. We also have spirits courses, which I forgot to tell you about. So, we do separate spirits courses as well. We have level 1, we have level 2. We will be able to offer you level 3 shortly as well. We have just got someone who is now qualified as an educator to teach level 3 spirits too. So that will be coming through shortly. We're also hoping, just to give you some heads up of things to come, WSET are currently developing and are testing beer courses. So we are going to be offering accredited beer courses, hopefully within the next year or so as well, which I'm excited about going on, quite frankly, because I love beer, but I don't actually know much about it. So I'll be first in line for my own courses, I think, on that one there. I won't be teaching that, but I'll be in there on the course. So yeah, that's really about it for WSET. Is there anything else that I need to say? The costs are expensive, I'm not going to lie. In terms of, the alternatives, Cape Wine Academy is a lot more cost effective than us because everything comes from the UK. The materials come from the UK, the exams come from the UK, and we pay in pounds. So we are not as cheap as other systems. So we range from 3,000, I don't even know my own prices now, about 3,000 for level 1, up to, take a deep breath guys, 120,000 for the level 4 diploma. We do have scholarships that we can access for level 3 and for level 4. The International Wine Challenge offers substantial scholarships that can help people to do that. And we've also been trying to get funding for people to be able to do earlier courses as well. We have funding, we put 50 people every year from the Pinotage Youth Development Academy. We put 50 people every year through level 2, and we've just got a sponsorship from WSET themselves, and we've just completed 15 members of BLAC, the Black Cellar Club of South Africa, have just gone through level 2 as well. So we're trying to fill that gap there. We're also going to try and fill the gap between 3 and 4, and we are actively seeking and hoping to secure funding for that, but it's not going to be for another year. We do payment plans. We are very open to the idea of payment plans, so you can do an instalment system if that's what you need to be able to fund your studies. And we're very open to discussions to do anything that we can to try and get everybody to get the qualifications they need. I was listening to what Gareth was saying, sort of from the MS point of view, and I hear this a lot from the MW point of view, and it's the same from WSET as well. Honestly, we make a living. I'm not going to lie that we don't make a living, but we don't make a fat living. We want to do this because we want to do this. I don't think I ever get as much pleasure as when I see students come back and say, look what I've done, look what I've managed to get for myself, look where I've managed to end up and what I've managed to achieve. And I'm absolutely certain Jacques is going to say this exactly the same thing. This is why we do it. We do it because seeing people just pick up the ball and run with it is the best reason to be a teacher. It really is. And yeah, that's what we do.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you just to go through the tasting methodology. It's a bit of a shift
I wonder
of
if it's
gears
worth
here.
doing it with Jacques, because I bet it's actually pretty much the same.
Yeah, okay. Cool,
Should we do it together?
Yeah, we
The
can do it
tasting.
together. Let me,
But it can't be that different, is it? Exactly. So
okay.
yeah,
So maybe at the end of Jacques we can go
we
through
can
that
kind of
one
go
together.
through them both together.
Awesome. All right, cool. That was excellent. Thank you. And I think Kathy also, SASA members get a discount as well on WSCT courses. Yeah. So if you are paying out of your own pocket, it's not a sponsored gig, and you want to do a WSCT course as a SASA member. One of the benefits or one of the great perks of being a SASA member is you get a discount on WSCT, which is really awesome. All right, awesome. And now introducing my next speaker, very, very significant, the Cape Wine Academy and Jacques Steyn. I know myself, I know for a lot of other people as well, got their start in wine, in the South African wine industry through the Cape Wine Academy. The role they play is incredibly important. I don't know if you'll share some of the numbers, but you'll be very surprised by the number of people who've gone through the courses, the length and breadth of the courses, and really it is a bedrock of knowledge and education in wine in South Africa, and it's really your first port of call to go to. And I think in the more recent times, and I'm sure you'll touch on that, there's been a nice revamp of the Cape Wine Academy and some really exciting things going on. So without any further ado, Jacques Steyn.
Thank you. Yeah, so good morning to everyone. I thought maybe before I start talking about the Cape Wine Academy, it's important to emphasize a couple of points that was mentioned here today. I think when you walk away from today's little seminar, you should definitely have the thought in your head that these are complementary to each other. So you can very easily do all of them, and they will be good for you. I maybe refer to my own journey into wine to give you a perspective on how different courses assisted me. So I didn't grow up in the Cape. I came from a small town in the north called Palabora, where you only drink beer and spirits. So my entry into wine was through food. So I came to Stellenbosch to study food, and I got my chef's qualification. And when I started working in the industry, I got exposed to wine. And then I started doing Cape Wine Academy courses. And as I got through to the diploma level, I then did WSET level 3 with Kathy. And then I did my Cape Wine Masters. So I'm currently working in the wine industry from a production point of view. So I'm the general manager at Jordan Wine Estate. And I can honestly tell you that all of these are very complementary to each other because it's about wine knowledge. But what is absolutely crucial to remember is that with the correct attitude and with hard work, you will get to the top. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're not willing to put in the effort and the energy and make it your own, it's not going to be handed to you on a plate. So that is absolutely essential to understand. The Cape Wine Academy is an extension of the South African wine industry. I think that is the really core idea of where the Cape Wine Academy is born. The Cape Wine Academy has been going for more than 4 decades in South Africa. The Institute of Cape Wine Masters, the Cape Wine Master qualification, sits right on top after the Cape Wine Academy, and the Cape Wine Academy administers the Cape Wine Master qualification. So really, irrespective of what you choose today, the Cape Wine Academy will be part of your journey somewhere along the line. Even if it's South African wine course, which is the really entry level, basic, a little bit of the history of South Africa, the South African wine industry. And as Kathy said, is that WSET is an international perspective on wine with really detailed information, lots of knowledge, lots of accessibility about what's going on international level. Cape Wine Academy is the industry through a South African perspective. So you get a really nice gloss of what's happening internationally, but really we want to build the next generation of South African wine leaders. and you start at the Cape Wine Academy through that. So even when you get to Cape Wine Master level, which is a self-study level, when you study and when you write the exams, they are all in-depth information about South Africa through the international industry through a South African perspective. I'm going to give you a practical example how we always try and explain it to people. When a Master of Wine, international Master of Wine comes and visits South Africa, and he comes and visits Jordan, and I take him through the cellar, and he asks me a couple of questions. Jacques, as the Cape Wine Master, needs to be the definitive voice on the South African industry to the Master of Wine. But the Master of Wine will be able to comprehend the information because he's a Master of Wine. And that is the difference between WSET and Cape Wine Academy. The Cape Wine Academy is also more accessible in terms of its pricing. We use Cape Wine Masters to facilitate the courses and to present the tastings and the lectures. You start basically with the South African wine course, which is really entry level. That's about 2,000 Rand. Then you go up to the certificate level, and in that course, that's where you start getting introduction to tasting wine, a basic tasting sheet. That's about 4,000 Rand for the course. Then you get to diploma level, which is 4 modules, which you can complete in 2 years. If you're really adventurous, you can complete it in 1 year, where you can do 2 modules at the same time. That's around 7,000 Rand per module. And then you get to, if you pass the diploma exam at more than 60% in your exam level, you can then apply to become part of the Cape Wine Master program, which is a self-study program. And that's starting at 25,000 Rand and can go up to 100,000 Rand, depending on how much wines you taste. I think the Cape Wine Master qualification is the pinnacle of what the Cape Wine Academy wants to offer and to promote. But we must remember, Cape Wine Master is a self-study qualification. You only sit the exams. And I go back to my original point. If you don't learn to work hard, even if it's right at the beginning, if you don't develop that discipline in terms of tasting correctly, doesn't matter what tasting grade you use, if it's the Master Sommelier or the WSET, if you don't learn to be disciplined right from the beginning, it becomes easier for you if you were disciplined in the beginning. But to teach yourself discipline and learning to study and putting your head down, if you haven't done it from the beginning, that's why I see the people fail. It's got nothing to do with wine knowledge. It's got to do with discipline. So I would encourage you, if you start your journey, have those parameters built in right from the beginning. Ultimately, what the Cape Wine Academy wants to do is to build South African wine leaders. So if you look who's passed away in the last couple of years, we had Alan Mullins, which was a magnificent personality in the wine industry. He was a Cape Wine Master. We had Dampy Bailey. We had Dave Hughes, who was an honorary Cape Wine Master member. So Dave Hughes, Phyllis Hans, Colin Frith, they started the Cape Wine Academy in the 70s. So the summary of this is basically, if you see yourself as playing an integral part in the South African wine industry and you want to try and find a niche somewhere in there, become a brand ambassador for a famous brand, you need to have the Cape Wine Academy somewhere in your journey to ensure that you can speak with a definitive voice and with authority about South African wine, which is really, really important because luckily we're a country which produces wine as well. You are not doing a wine course in a country which doesn't produce its own wine. You have to understand what we are doing here. And if you've got that perspective, then a course like WSET, in a way, becomes a little bit easier because you can get into your car, 40 minutes drive, and then you're in Stellenbosch, or you can go to Franschhoek, or you can go to Elgin. You can speak to producers, you can taste different wines. And that's why wine education in South Africa is so dynamic and so exciting, because we've got within a 50 kilometer to 100 kilometer radius, you can have a wide range of grape varieties and styles and perspectives and winemaking philosophies, which you can ingrain in yourself. But the world is out there for you to explore. So I think that's probably the summary. the Cape Wine Masters and the Cape Wine Academy also wants to give back to the industry. So it's big on defining the culture of what South African wine is. What is a South African wine culture? How does that look like? And we embarked on our Vision 2030 program 2 years ago, where we are encouraging a new entry of Black Cape Wine Masters that we want to have enter the industry by 2030. And through that, but again, which is important to understand, it doesn't get handed to you on a plate. What the Vision 2030 is about providing funding, first of all, that you don't have to pay that out of your pocket yourself, but also secondly, to have an extreme mentorship, to really try and understand where you are struggling and providing you with material and perspective which can take it to the next level. But without hard work and attitude, no one will get there. So that's all from my side. Thank you, Spencer.
Brilliant, thank you, Jacques. That was excellent. Very detailed and to the point. And I really hope that the key takeaway for that is the relevance. And I think you said it very well, that this is, none of these things are in competition with themselves. It really, with each other. Sorry, they all really complement each other in different ways depending on what they're. I mean, ultimately, you only have so much money to spend, right? So you got your 100,000 rand that you've been able to put together towards education. You need to decide which avenue is going to be the best bang for your buck, depending on what outcome you want to get. So that was a really cool one. The next speaker is a very interesting and a very different dynamic to this thing, and I think I touched on it at the beginning, but that's also becoming more and more relevant and very, very important, especially, again, from a funding perspective. That's the self-study way, that there are a lot of opportunities being created internationally for people to be able to learn on their own, to use discipline, and maybe not if they don't have the resource or don't have the time to be able to attend formal courses. And Erica Taylor is done a number of these things, and I think is very well qualified to speak of a few of the ones she's done and the process, and just a little bit on the discipline required to do it. So over to you, Erica.
Hello. Yes, if you follow me on Instagram, you see that I'm constantly studying. I started with WSET. I actually did WSET 1, 2, and 3 all in the same year while I was moving to South Africa, which I think I got a little overly excited, but it's because I love to continue studying. And I feel like it's also like a muscle that if you stop doing it, you stop making those flashcards. It's easy to fall out of it and to not pick it back up. So I did in class for level 2 with Kathy and for level 3, and I unfortunately failed theory my first 2 times. And of course I passed tasting, because obviously that's the best part. Then I ended up, after retaking the exam again, decided to try doing the online version of level 3, which I just found for me was how I studied better. So once I finished level 3, I was like, okay, what else is there? What other online courses are there that have similar online certifications? So the first one that I started with was, and I'll have these books around, was from the Society of Wine Educators, and it's called the Certified Specialist of Wine. I would probably equate this to between WSET level 3 and 4 as far as breadth of knowledge, but the certification is only 100 multiple choice questions. So in here you learn about Serbia and Lebanon and China and India. So you go much more into some kind of more up and coming regions. This course in particular is interesting because you just buy the book, and then you only pay for the exam. So if you want to study for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, well, the book I guess does expire at some point, but you just pay a minimal amount for the book, and you can kind of study on your own. And then when you feel ready to take the exam, you can take the exam. Society of Wine Educators also has, once you sign up to become a member, they have flashcards available. They have maps. They have blank maps that you can fill in, which again, I think the theme that we've been discussing helps in any course that you're taking, whether it's WSET or Cape Wine Academy. It's just a different visual way to put it into your head. One of the things about this course that I really like is they give you an amazing workbook that it's multiple choice, it's short answer, it's match the regions, match the grape, match the synonym. This one is empty because I didn't want to make it not beautiful, so everything's been done on my computer. So they give you a lot of resources, and if you want to sign up, when you actually sign up to take the exam, they have an online, Jane Nichols is the woman who runs it, and they have an online course that goes 2 times a day, so it can get to any time zone. And I think it runs about 9 weeks, so you can make time to sit down on those, and they have a great group of other people that are also studying that you have access to for support, for people to study with. So Certified Specialist of Wine is a really good kind of overview option. It's written very differently than WSET. It's kind of more reading a novel style than just straight facts. But having done WSET immensely helped me to take this because I wasn't starting at ground zero. So I highly recommend it. And the Certified Specialist of Wine also, if you pass, you do get to have CSW after your name, so like MS or DIPSET, WSET. So if that's important for you, which is important for me, so I want to have all the things after my name, then that's something that's available. So it's mostly based in the US, but it is recognized in many countries because you can take it and it represents many countries. So that's the Society of Wine Educators and the Certified Specialist of Wine. They also do spirits as well, but also just in general, Society of Wine Educators. Even if you're not taking any of their courses, they have awesome resources that can help with whatever other path you're taking as well. The one that I'm currently working on is the French Wine Scholar, and I actually take my exam on Monday. Postponed it 3 times now, so ready for it. This is from the Wine Scholar Guild, and they offer French, Spanish, and Italian. And with French, then they also, once you've passed this exam, they also offer master level classes for Alsace, Beaujolais, Burgundy, Bordeaux, to go even more intense. This level is, I would probably say this is like D3 WSET diploma just for France. So if you just think that this is, so just thinking about WSET diploma, this is just the France portion of D3. That kind of shows you a little bit of how intense, WSET diploma is. But again, Wine Scholar Guild has amazing resources, different kinds of maps. And you take your exam online, it's full self-study. They have tons of resources that are able to be used, and they also work in a way with very different graphics, and it's just different information. It's complementary to WSET, but it's just different. They also include traditional foods from those regions, which is not necessarily on the exam, but it kind of, I think, helps to put context to where things are. They talk about a lot more of the people that were important to these regions. They give you great diagrams, which of course I'm not finding as I'm just randomly flipping. So for example, the AOCs of the Loire, it tells you exactly what the appellation is, what colors, what's allowed, and how much area is under vine. So it does give you, depending on how you learn visually, it just gives you different options. And I'm a person that if I ever stop studying, then I might not ever pick it back up again. So that's why I pretty much I'll probably take Cape Wine Academy at some point, and definitely doing diploma. I'm hoping next year. But I'm trying to take as much certifications as I can before I get to that point. But there are more and more certifications that are happening online. And same with Certified Specialist of Wine. With French Wine Scholar, you get FWS at the end of your name, or IWS for Italy, or SWS. And they also offer spirits, and I believe are starting with sherry and sake. So if that's something that you're interested in as well. But anything self-study, I've probably looked into it, I've probably done it. So if you have any questions on self-study things, feel free to come to me. And yeah. Yeah, so the cost is about $500 to $750 US to take the exams. Again, you don't have access, you know, you're not paying for, I mean, they give you recommended wine lists, but for both of these, there's no tasting portion. So it's more just about continuing the education. You can, of course, it does help to taste the wines, as always. Unfortunately here, we obviously have less access to some of the wines that they wish that we would taste. But more people are starting to take it, and you can form groups of people to buy the wine. I'm trying to convince Timbani to take Italian Wine Scholar with me next and have a little group. So it could be a fun thing to do instead of a book club. Maybe you and some friends all decide to pick a region and study it together, go in on the wines. But you can really go on your own pace if you have work or school or anything, and just great resources that help you with other things as well. So I'll be a member even when I'm not taking exams. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Erica. Yeah, and so there are other options as well out there, outside of the formal ones. So just our last speaker now sort of ties it all together. And I think in different ways, I think Jacques mentioned it quite nicely, and JV as well, is all right, I've got a qualification, and what do I do with it? You know, I've already done my WSTs, I've done this, and what other opportunities present themselves for me in the wine industry? And very pleased to be introducing Jonathan Stein from UCT, which he administers, and he will tell you in greater detail. But it's a really fantastic course. I think it's called The Business of Wine. And it really focuses on exactly that, as described, the business of wine. And it's in the same way, you know, sommelier drills down on the service aspect. I think the business aspect of it is equally important, depending on which direction you want to take your career. And at the end of it all, it's always great to have a formal university qualification behind it as well. I think a lot of people in the industry, from a service perspective, have more vocational trainings rather than degrees in universities and formal things like those. So I think it's a really great course because it bridges the two. But Jonathan will tell you a lot more about that. So thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Spencer. And Spencer's actually also involved as a lecturer on the emerging market side in our business, started last year with us. So very excited to also expand on that. Yeah, so just a little intro, why the Business of Wine course is in 2015, there was a wine business program at the Graduate School of Business where I'm based at the University of Cape Town, which is here in the waterfront, in partnership with Adelaide University. But that had slowed down and the Graduate School of Business wanted to run it on its own, a course focused on the business of wine. So I went out into the industry. I went to speak to business leaders to find out, well, what were the vacant skills that they really needed, specialist skills that the industry needed, that we could then train on a business school level. And so we spoke to a lot of people and started to develop a curriculum around that. And really the course, there was a lot of education around the production of wine, but not a lot of education about how to deliver value and how to create value in organizations, and any focus on wine business, right? And wine business being across the value chain. So from nursery business to sommelier anywhere in between, the focus on business skills. And I think if you look at the country brand of South Africa and how we're performing compared to our competitors in the global south and in the global north, there are clearly vacant skills that are required to be developed in order to improve the performance in the industry. So we have mainly our target audiences from South Africa, but we do have international students coming as well. And once again, our audience is from soil scientists to distributors, marketers, winemakers, viticulturists, sommeliers, wine retailers, entrepreneurs, anybody who's involved in the wine value chain. And so we're really trying to upskill. So when we're talking about upskilling, we're talking about not knowledge acquisition, right? We're not trying to download knowledge like in the Matrix where he sort of plugs in and suddenly it plugs in, the program into this guy's brain and suddenly he can do kung fu. So if we're not, that's not what we're trying to teach. Our main skills that we're really trying to teach is critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity in business. And that is the aim, that's the general aim, because if we teach those skills, the rest will follow. So there is a lot of content. It is a very, very intense program. And I'll go into a little bit of detail just now, but it's nice to have a couple of our alumni here. They can vouch for the intensity of the program. But really, there's two elements besides the critical thinking and the problem solving. It's leadership and innovation. So teaching people to solve problems in a creative way, teaching them to innovate. So we look at different types of innovation. And then also teaching people to inspire new ways of thinking, leadership, to work effectively with people. So a lot of our contact phase is focused on group work. So 30% of the mark that you get is your group. And that's often where is the most challenging part. So it adopts an MBA format in the contact period where you have to work together intensely in groups. But we teach collaborative innovation tools that will enable people to reduce conflict and to produce a collective project that is innovative and effective. So we cover a number of topics from business strategy to finance and also strategic marketing, people management, and then we do, in terms of tasting, our focus is a lot different. We're not focusing on the aesthetic qualities necessarily. Michael Fridgen does a day where they taste through numerous flights of wine and they write a short exam. But the aim is not to assess the aesthetics necessarily of the wine. It's to connect that to the intentionality of it, to the intention. For what reason was it made? Because we're not trying to assess its quality and its characteristics necessarily. We're trying to find which markets is the suited, why is the wine made in a certain way, where does it fit into the big scheme of things. So very different type of tasting protocol and critical thinking around that. So we offer it in a blended format. It's 3 months end to end. There's a pre-work period where you've got a whole lot of content. Firstly, on finance, which is always the most difficult for people to really grasp. So there's like quizzes that you have to fill out. We do a lot of quizzes. That's all done of our online platform, and then general business concepts, blue ocean strategy, all the kind of frameworks that we use to teach these business skills. And then we have a live online section, so that's the asynchronous part of the program. And then we have live online, which is around 4 days, which is part of the contact period where we have lectures. And then group work is every evening. So the students work are in lectures from 8 in the morning until 6 in the afternoon, in the evening, and then have group work every night because they have collective projects to deliver by the end of the contact. And then the rest of the time is spent at the business school. And then we also spend a day in the field talking to businesses and engaging with them. And then the post-course period assessment is an individual project, and they have to have about 6 to 8 weeks to do a case study analysis. So that's what we teach them, is how to analyze a case, like a real-world scenario, be able to come up with particular solutions to a particular business problem, and then also to write a business plan. So we give them the skills to write a business plan, not only for if they want to start their own venture, but as entrepreneurs within a business, starting a new campaign or a new value-adding initiative within in that space. The cost is 28,000 this year, and we do have bursaries and scholarships available for according to certain criteria. I think this year we've got around 8 to 10, and we only take 24 students every year. And at this rate, it looks like we're going to be massively oversubscribed, but we always have a really nice a group. We do assume a first degree for the program because we are a graduate school of business, but we do take students who have got experience in the wine business and have done qualifications. For example, WSET does count for us, various courses that they've done, also short courses in the thing. We feel they are able to cope with the level of work, then we will admit them. But the standard is really at a postgraduate and honors level, so it is very tough. You can ask the guys who've done it here, and they will vouch for it. But it's a really amazing program, not only just for the change in thought, because that's really what it's meant to do. It's to change your pattern of thinking, but also the network that it creates. So we have 200 of alumni, and we are really creating a great community, all who are doing really great things across the industry in many different fields. We have quite a few sommeliers every year, but the main body tends to be viticulturists, winemakers. But that's where really there's an opportunity as well, is the cross-learning. Because if someone in your group is a guy who's making wine in Vredendal, and then the other guy's a sommelier in a fine dining restaurant, there's a lot these two can learn from each other and share their experiences. And also, so it really is a great course, and we're now preparing in June for the next one, and love to have more sommeliers and people from different parts of the wine value chain on the course this year and in future. So thank you. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Super. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Yeah, and so there you have it. It's a complete picture of the entire landscape of what we can do. I realize pricing, we didn't do everyone except SASA and the Sommeliers Academy introduced their pricing. I'll just give JV an opportunity to do that, but also we'll put something up once we get the video up with all the different courses and all the different costs and all the different contacts available for everyone. So if you want to know, if you want to pick it up, you can take it from there. But JV, your costs real quick.
Okay, Marcos, real quick. We got some wine modules. We even got some online training on platform. We have a wine level 1 day. Only South African wine is around 1.7. It's available online. It will be available as well online with samples delivered to you. We got level 2, which is South African wine in international perspective, to make the link and the bridge between South Africa and the rest of the world. It's 2 days. It's about 4,300 rand, if I remember well. And we got international wine, which is once a year. It's 5 days, and we look at 10,000 rand because wine is expensive. And on the service side, we have wine steward. It's a 1 day module, a bit of basic wine. It's mostly for your runners and your helper, your assistant sommeliers on the floor, and etiquette of service, proper service, management of temperature and glassware. It's 219 per day. The wine ambassador is a 2 days certification, mostly addressing the soft skill of service. So don't expect to learn anything about wine, but we'll teach you the service, including the food pairing. So you'll get still a bit of wine to drink on the last day. It's 4,500, I think, something like that. For the certified courses, the SASA Junior Sommelier goes for 7,400 for 3 days. It doesn't include your membership to SASA because you have to be member to sit the exam, and the cost of the exam, which is 1,000 rand for the Junior Sommelier, if I remember well. We don't run a SASA certified sommelier course because it depends on your background. Like Jonathan said, and to come back, it's not because you got a course. You need to be plugged somewhere, and that's where self-studying is vital in all the school or whatever you choose. You need to buy book, read, go online, follow up. That's the only way you can succeed. We got as well beer certification for BGCP judging, an American way of judging. It's run once a year. It's not cheap. It's about below 5,000 rand, not including the exam to the BGCP, but then you can become an official beer judge for competition. And we got a coffee sommelier that is only once a year as well. It's about 4,000 rand. It's a 2 days program. And we will have the Revue du Vin France Masterclass available here. It's going to be 1 day masterclass, and we try to price them super cheap because this is South Africa. So it will be below 3,000 rand for the day of masterclass, including online intervention from Best Sommelier of Europe, Frank Thomas, in English. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, JV. And then just to draw a line under it, so your SASA courses, your SASA exams, just the exams, as JV said, your junior sommelier exam is 1,000 rand. Your SASA sommelier exam is 2,500 rand, and we offer the ASI diploma at 7,500 rand. So, oh yes, of course, an introductory we start with is 500 rand. And again, as we said, that was the idea behind that, is just have it as accessible as possible. All right, cool. So as I said, we'll have all those costs up for you guys, and this recording will be available as well. If you want to go through it again, if there's anything you might have missed, and again, I encourage you, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us and you can take it from there. Just the last little exercise, completely voluntary. I know we've got into 12 o'clock, which was our finish time that we had hoped for. You've got a glass of wine in front of you. You've got the different tasting grids in front of you. If you want to do it on your own, you can go through it and check it out and see where the differentiation is or anything like that. And it's great because you've got the right people in the room. So if you want to do it now and ask a few questions, please by all means, but not obligatory. So if you must run, please go ahead. And then just on the other glass, we have our partners and sponsors, the Brandy Foundation, who we're going to be a lot of work with in the next year and really try and raise the profile and awareness of South African brandy. And they were kind enough to donate a bottle of fantastic brandy for us today, which is just for you to taste and enjoy. It's a reward for your hour and a half of dedicated attention. So thank you very much. It's something that is pretty special. There's a lot of work and time that's put into this sort of thing, so please enjoy that. Thank you very much to all the speakers. Thank you very much for all the information and making the time to present it. I know we're all very busy, so that's really well appreciated. And mostly thank you to everyone who's going to watch this online or has come in person to witness this. This is hopefully of benefit to you, and hopefully of greater benefit to the rest of the industry. But thank you very much for taking the time to do it. We will be doing another one of these things in a couple of months as well. We'll just look out on our social media and our website about it. I think we'll have some very interesting topics throughout the year, but feedback very much welcome. This is the first time we're doing something like this, so a lot of feedback. We'll work on it and see how we can do it better. But finally, thank you all very much and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Cool.